So, hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Mm, normally, today would be the last day that we meet face to face, and we would have had our intensive week, and everyone would present what they have done, and then we would end it all with a nice party and so on and so on, and leave as best friends. Well, but as we all know, this spring is a bit different. So I'll continue with this video, and because I was a bit ill during the intensive course, I will do some videos also over the next days. So for me, the Freedom course does not end yet, but I'll continue it. I also still hope to get more comments by you, mails or in my courses, and especially that you join the WhatsApp group. Some of you have sent me their telephone number, and I created today a group. A lot of people haven't yet. So please send me your telephone number via mail, for example, and then you can be part of the WhatsApp group, and then the discussion is also much easier. Except from this, of course, you can comment on my courses or just send me a mail, whatever it concerns. Today, just some thoughts, which are actually also connected to this situation a lot. But I think some of the concepts we talked about during our course are quite interesting if we think about the lockdown situation at this moment. First of all, defamiliarization. I hope every one of you still remembers defamiliarization, a concept which was created by Victor Schlovsky and by Bertolt Brecht when he spoke about the foul effect. I kind of think that the situation at the moment has led to some kind of defamiliarization. At least when I watch TV at the moment, or when I watch people outside, suddenly I recognize how much physical intimacy actually there are between people, how much we hug each other or give hands or kisses on the cheek or so on. It's something I haven't been thinking about for a long time. It just felt so normal that I didn't think about it. But now when, because of the situation, the context, because for me this is defamilization through context, is different. Suddenly I start recognizing it and start also to think in different terms about it. We often speak about that human beings are quite cold and don't care so much about each other, but it kind of for me looks like that actually we also do, and that intimacy, and especially physical intimacy, which means just hugging or so on, is really important for us, and it's everywhere. And because of this, it's everywhere. It's also so difficult now at the moment to distance ourselves from all of this. Kind of, we could think about also about the moment that we are in a global performance artwork, where we have to, with our bodies, behave in a different way than what we have done before. For example, if people go shopping, that they really have this 1.5 meter distance to each other. Kind of, if you look at the pictures you see in the media, it somehow reminds of a huge performance, and it's a performance we haven't chosen. Maybe we don't want this performance, or I don't want it at all, but something like this has happened. So would be also interesting if you have started to recognize the same thing, like how much actually physical contact there is between people normally, and that you also have recognized that this somehow, this situation defamiliarizes us, and we start to think in different terms about it, or at least acknowledge it, that it's so completely normal that we hug each other, or give each other the hand, or so on. But again, this is just a question to you, and would be interested if you think about it the same way. Then let's come to part 2. Well, when we spoke about freedom in our course, we always spoke about options. Well, again, at this moment, of course, a lot of options are taken away from us. Kind of the only, looks like for me, only intelligent option at least is that we more or less stay at home. Now, from a philosophical concept, of course, this is very interesting, because it is in opposition to our individual rights. I just checked it before this video, and part of our individual rights, as defined, for example, by the United States Constitution or by the United Nations, is the freedom from interference by other individuals or the government. I repeat, freedom from interference by other individuals or the government. For example, the First Amendment of the United States Constitution discusses the freedom of assembly. The freedom of assembly, so we can meet in groups, we can organize ourselves in groups, in public spaces. Well, this very basic individual right at the moment has been taken away. We don't have the freedom of assembly. Well, in Finland, I guess at the moment is it the freedom of assembly of 10 people in public places. In Germany, it's already a freedom of assembly of only 2 people, because Germany is so much fighting against the epidemic. Then the Amendment 2 of the United States Constitution is the freedom of movement and the freedom of mobility rights. Well, as you see, if you look at the situation in Europe, of course, this freedom of movement isn't in action anymore. It's been taken away. We are not allowed to move anymore. And again, there are very important and sensible reasons behind it. But all in all, we have come to a situation which I haven't experienced during the 44 years of my life. There have been taken away some absolutely basic individual rights, for example, well, assembly and freedom of movement. Liberalists probably would say that what is happening here is catastrophic, and some rights which are so basic, like the freedom of movement, shouldn't be taken away in any circumstances. I personally see that, interestingly, freedom is a wonderful concept, but there are situations where society and the well-being of the society are much more important than individual freedom. it's lovely that we normally have these options of individual freedom. For example, the option of freedom of movement. But there can be times, and now there is a time, that the welfare of the society is more important, and only if we care about the welfare, then maybe we can get back these basic individual rights at a later time, for example, the freedom of movement. I still hope, well, I don't trust the summer anymore, but I hope, for example, next year spring, I jump again in an airplane and go surfing and stick to my freedom of movement, and also my freedom of pursuing my own happiness. But that's also an interesting question. If some of you guys, for example, think that the actions taken by the governments in Europe are not okay, and that they harm our individual rights in a too massive way, it would be very interesting to hear who of you think so, and about the arguments behind it. Because, of course, also the actions taken by the governments, it's nothing simple. Also from a theoretical construct, it's nothing simple. Then, let's go to the next point. Well, most of the time I don't really have so much to do. Sitting at home, or kind of in quarantine somewhere in Finland where no one lives actually. I write, I teach script writers, but yes, I also miss it that I can see other people, and yes, I spend quite a lot of time in social media, because I don't really have to do anything else. So in social media, I think it looks like that the option, or the forced option, stay at home, actually has also led to some kind of creativity. I think for creativity, from time to time, we actually need some time. We need spare time. We need it that we are bored and nothing happens around us, so we start to create our own content. Because if I look, for example, what is happening in Facebook, I love it. All the stuff people invent at the moment, because they have so much spare time, and they try to create their own content, and in some way to make their own life more interesting. My dog is eating my camera. Dog, come here. Luna! Here's my dog. Do you see it? I don't know if you see it. I use the dog here to get more viewers on this video, but I'm still not sure if you see it, but at least I can show you the tail of the dog. Well, okay, let's continue. Now there's something else connected to this freedom, which is created through this forced option, stay at home. Because I actually believe that creativity is not what is being said so often, that creativity means thinking outside the black box. For me, this is kind of a cliche. I believe that the starting point is that you first think outside the black box, but if this is all you do, then actually what you are creating next is just jazzing around. Jazzing around is a concept created by Gardner in his book The Art of Fiction, and he says that jazzing around is someone who actually kind of works in a creative way, but he can't concentrate on anything properly, so he jazzes around. He thinks out of the black box, but then he has one idea which leads into this direction, in this direction, in this direction, in this direction, and in this direction, and so on. which leads again to it that there will be never a concentrated and finished art product. I like this idea a lot, because I think that jazzing around in the end does not lead to very good results. What I believe is, in the end, creativity which leads to good results is that we have the person, and this person can think. If this is my black box, well, this is now my black box, okay? And here we have the person, and this person can think somehow outside the black box, but then after he has gone away from the black box, the person creates a new black box and first stays in this, so the person can start to dive deep inside the new field he or she has found. So I also try to draw it and somehow to explain my idea. So there we have it first, a black box. And then in Western art, at least, everyone says, hey, we have to do some innovations, we have to develop, we have to be creative. We shouldn't stay in this black box, but creativity means thinking outside the black box, one of the most generic answers there are at the moment in arts. Well, now Gardner says, if you just go out the black box, then you just start to jazz around. You jump to one thing and to another thing and to a third thing and to a fourth thing and to a fifth thing, and because you don't concentrate on any of these, probably in the end this doesn't lead to anything. Maybe you could think this like Tinder dates. Well, there's someone who jazzes around, jumps from one date to another, but just because of jumping from one date to another, you never really learn the other person probably and develop a deeper relationship. Gardner says, yeah, actually what you have to do is, yes, you have to think out of the black box and you have to start jazzing around, but then you have to create your new black box. Your new black box, and then you decide by yourself consciously, not because some outside power forces you, but because you opt for it. Then you decide consciously that you stick to it. You first stay with one of these ideas which are outside the black box, and you create a new box around it with some kind of artificial borders, but you have created these borders by yourself. And then you stick with it, and by sticking with it you concentrate on it and you start to dive deeper and deeper and deeper in it. And this is actually, if someone asks me what is a fruitful artistic process, I normally answer it in this way. It means stepping out of it, jazzing around, and stepping into a new black box, but you chose it because you want to dive deep in it and find out what is all in it. And now I will try to come back to the idea I mentioned in the introduction here. I think somehow that what is happening at the moment is, because people have to stay at home, they have their very they have their very clear borders, and they actually find themselves in a kind of a black box. And in this black box there are not very much elements you can use. So all you have to do, because you can't do anything else, is that you start diving deep inside this small black box of your home, where you can't go jazzing around somewhere else and finding new materials, but what you have is just a very limited amount of different elements or materials. And because you have this very limited amount of it, you start to be creative, because you use this limited amount of elements to create more or less unlimited amount of creative products. So what I would say here, that more or less everyone lives now in some kind of a black box, and all the borders which are connected to this black box, all these limitations of this black box, leads to this creativity we experience at the moment. And of course, I hope also that you do some artwork. Maybe you have a lot of time at the moment, maybe you're bored, I don't know, but if you are, check out what you have at home and start working with it, deal with the question of freedom, or deal also with the question of this kind of forced prison we have at the moment. Well, that's for it for today. I think I will publish another video tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. There's still some subjects I want to speak about. It's a bit of a stream of consciousness I'm using here, so I'm just speaking about the ideas which I have, and yes, I would love to hear some comments from you. I hope you stay at home and keep the social distance, and especially I hope you stay healthy. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.